Hello, my name is Manda Bates, and I am going to share a story about my life with you. And I've incorporated some wonderful paintings that have been a part of my life for a very long time to help illustrate important points. So, to get started, I was born in 1977. I was raised with my three brothers in a household that included my mother and both my grandmother and my great grandmother. This photo is a photo of The Last Supper by the artist Leonardo da Vinci. And this photo was a picture that hung in my great grandmother's living room for as long as I can remember. My great grandmother was a very spiritual woman, and she taught me so many different stories about God and the Bible, and it's really where my faith began to be birthed as a young child. Um, she would sit and we would look at this photo, and she would explain to me the story behind the photo and what happened that caused such an uproar at this dinner. I would study the faces of each person in this photo and just wonder, what are they thinking? How are they feeling at this moment? This photo is something that's very near and dear to me. It reminds me so much of her. It reminds me so much of those times. And it just makes me feel really happy and really loved. The next photo that we're going to look at is a photo by Edvard Munch. It's called The Scream. Um, Not too long ago, I lost my grandmother and went through a terrible downward spiral in my life. And this picture that Edvard Munch drew, he actually drew after he lost one of his closest friends. And I relate to this picture so much because during the time that she was passing away and after she passed, I was screaming the entire time. However, it was silent. No one could really hear me. And if you saw me, you probably wouldn't really know what was going on the inside of me. Um, and this photo represents my view of the world and actually how I felt at that time. The next photo is Blue Nude by Pablo Picasso. It represents, for me, just a very somber period in my life as I was moving through the grief process. Um, the grief process was very blue, and it was very lonely sometimes too, because there are facets of grief that you have to move through yourself. And this picture represents this part of my life to a T. The next photo that I wanted to include is by Cassandra Swerenga, and it's a photo of a young lady by the river. And you can interpret, what she's thinking and what she's doing down there into so many different areas of your own life. For me, the water was where I found a lot of my healing after the death of my grandmother. The water is actually where I came to the realization and made the decision that I really needed to pursue my dream of, finishing college and obtaining my degree. Um, it's where I felt safe. It's where I felt the most grounded. It's where I felt the most like myself. And I would go down by the lake and I would be there for hours and hours and just thinking and feeling and crying, and whatever emotion I was feeling, I would let it out by the water. And this just reminds me so much of those times. It reminds me of the period in which I was actually moving out of the darkest areas of grief and actually starting to see light again. And it's very important because, as I stated earlier, it's where I decided that I needed to and wanted to go back to school. The next photo is a photo by Ivy Hayes. And if you know anything about Ivy Hayes, well, you'll know his work because the colors. He always uses these wonderful, beautiful, vibrant colors. And I love this picture because it reminds me of church as a young girl. How you would see, all the different churchgoers in their beautiful outfits, talking and commingling together. But for me, I incorporated this into my story because it represents the people who prayed for me, the people who took time to check on me and care about me as I was moving through uh, grief and dealing with um, losing my favorite person in the whole world. It just reminds me of support. The colors just make me feel so loved and so happy, and it just reminds me of the people, the village that was behind me as I moved through this stage in my life. This picture is called Three Graces, and it's by Botticello. And this picture reminds me of angels. It's so sweet, but it represents myself and my two daughters and the bond that we were able to build and that we are continuing to build amongst one another. We are the best of friends. We love each other, respect each other deeply. And I had to incorporate in this in there because it was them who also helped carry me through and supported me and encouraged me to take the step to go back to school, which I was very scared of. I was very apprehensive to get started, but um, through their support and their love continuously, I've been able to make it through thus far. And the last photo is a photo by Ivy Hayes. As you can tell, the color scheme, and he just has these larger than life photos that I just connect with so much. But this photo represents the celebration that happened once I finally did enroll in school and I got my first 4.0 GPA, and it marked the end of a very dark time of my life. I still mourn and I still grieve and I still miss my grandmother, but I use that pain to push me into a new realm of my life. And I want anyone that hears this to know that they can do it too. You just have to do the work, and you do have to allow the grief to run its course. And what's been so cleansing for me throughout this assignment, throughout this whole course and process, is really just familiarizing myself with various art forms and various music. There's healing in these pictures. And, the gentlemen and women that drew these pictures drew from their own perspective and their own feeling. But who would have known that that would touch so many millions of people in their own situation? So I thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed my story. Bye.